Yuusuke Yatsuya, an ordinary boy who is a total loner with no friends and just plays video games like yourself. Well, that's so apparent that even his teacher tells him to make some friends or his chances of marrying a woman will just keep declining, once again like yourself. But his life takes a drastic turn when one day he finds himself teleported to another world that seemed almost like a video game. However, Yuusuke's task is to be a hero of this other world. But it's kinda hard to envision that when he is getting the mess kicked out of him by literal goblins. Although heroes may be the furthest thing for him at the moment, being a villain isn't. The anime begins with Yuusuke, being the loser he is fighting some goblins in another world. After kicking down all the goblins, he thinks that he might be in danger living here, but at least it's way better than living back in the city. Going back into Tokyo before all THSI started. Yuusuke decides to go to school and hears annoying chit-chats go around, and after school, he sees the most perfect girl to ever exist, Iu, which we gonna call her Lu since it is easier. Anyways, moving on from that, he goes back to his home and starts gaming like an average weeb with no love life. The next day, Yuusuke has class duty and he sees Lu and Kyusu, who talk about how nervous they are. Yuusuke thinks about the last night he was seeing Lu's pictures, where he thinks that she is totally out of his league. He's not wrong about it, at least, but he has the awareness of it. He snaps out of it and sees that Lu and Kyusu are looking towards him, and the poor boy gets nervous. Later, Yuusuke's teacher tells him to submit his career form. But he looks at the end of the class and sees Lu and Kyusu still sitting and staring at him. Seeing the loner he is, the teacher tells him to make himself more social and make friends. Then, he nervously says to Lu and Kyusu that he will be okay and they should go too. But as soon as he looks back, both of them vanish like your dad who vanished to get some milk. Before he could even comprehend the situation, some paranormal activity begins and he suddenly vanishes from the place too. He gets dropped into water in a strange place surrounded by weird monsters, and he spots Lu and Kyusu. Panicked, he asks them where he is, and suddenly, a nude man with a bold as heck print of hands on his body covering his man features appears. He is the game master and gives them a quest. Lu is a witch and Kyusu is a warrior. Anyways, back to it, the game master spins a wheel for Yuusuke and he becomes the farmer. With his occupation decided, the game master leaves. After snapping out of the confusion, these three walk into the woods and see a lock point which stores memories. Basically, it stores all the trauma as if our memory wasn't enough to remind us that we were deprived of basic love. Anyhow, that's not the point, and Yuusuke thinks about Tokyo and wonders that he wouldn't want to go back. Suddenly, some goblins show up, and being himself, Yuusuke tries to flex his masculinity by trying to eliminate some goblins. But well, the goblin eliminates Yuusuke. You might be wondering, where are the other party members who received impressive classes? Well, they about as useless as yourself. You have a wizard who can only do a gentle breeze which practically can't do jack nothing. Then you have a knight who is somehow scared to use her sword. And when she did use it, she may as well have walked her useless ass away as well. But he revives within 30 seconds, and after a little more practice in getting himself banged up, Lu and Yuusuke eat goblins. Later at night, Yuusuke guards Lu and Kyusu while they sleep, slaying away the goblins. Suddenly, he hears Lu's screams as if her stepdaddy entered her room to So, Yuusuke runs back and sees that there is a huge monster, definitely not as big as my uncle, which gobbles up Lu. He takes Kyusu's hand and runs away. The next day, Kyusu and Yuusuke go to the village and the villagers somehow recognize the hero. Then, Yuusuke goes to the village chief and he gives Yuusuke the task to eliminate the monster who devoured Lu. Hearing that, Yuusuke is baffled and wonders how he will do it. He already knows that Kyusu is just made for the kitchen and somehow she became the warrior, so he leaves her behind in the village. With that said, he sets out his foot to face the monster with an evil smile on his face because he enjoys this life more than the NPC life back in Tokyo. Wandering in the woods, Yuusuke bumps into a lock point where he sees the previous conversation of Kyusu and Lu. They talked about who they should bring in and Lu suggested Yuusuke. But Yuusuke is confused because he knows there are two Yuusukes in the class. Before he could find the answer, the lock point vanished. After a while, some goblins show up as Yuusuke was gazing upon the village view. Just like Jackie Chan, he eliminates all the goblins, but one of them runs away. Suddenly, he gets news that Kyusu died and he looks at the village to see that there was a massive fire in the entire village. Yuusuke runs to the village and finds a lock point where Kyusu was telling the kids that back in her real world she was no less than a burden because she was always sick. she sure isn't wrong about being a burden. But anyhow, she wants to get stronger to help her friends out over here, which makes Yuusuke realize that he just always thinks about himself and is pretty selfish. Since now Kyusu has been eaten up by the monster, Yuusuke would be the next meal of the monster. He runs for his life, but some realization hits and he decides to face the monster. The entire time the monster was our uncle, but yet trust me, this one was a real monster. Suddenly, the goblin that escaped showed up and Yuusuke killed the goblin. With that said, the game master shows up, freezing the time. Now, the game master gives Yuusuke another job as a chef, which grants Yuusuke a knife. The game master leaves and the time unfreezes, but Yuusuke takes advantage of that and stabs the monster with his knife, reviving Lu and Kyusu. Now, they gotta be quicker than your slow ass and make a plan on how to take down the monster. So, Yuusuke goes inside the monster through the stab and begins to damage internally, but Lu climbs on top of his head and through her stick, she stabs his head. After that, she uses her wind magic to blow up his brains and the monster dies. And once again, Kyusu was still as useless as your junkie girlfriend in the killing of the monster. Now, the game monster shows up and congratulates them for leveling up. Then, he turns to Yuusuke and gives him his reward. He can ask any question to him. So, Yuusuke asks him about their future, where he is shown that in the near future they will be fighting a dragon. Since the quest is complete, these three get taken back to their world, where the time was the same as before. There, Lu thanks Yuusuke for saving her life and leaves. Later, Yuusuke thinks that the dragon he saw was in the same city where he is right now, and if he abandons the quest, the city will be destroyed, which would be a dream come true for him. One morning, Lu talks to her friend about how she finds Yuusuke interesting. Well, she probably has daddy issues because she is being attracted to a selfish man in the hopes that maybe she could fix him. On the other hand, the game master calls Yuusuke where he says that he is specifying a girl for the success of their next mission. So, Yuusuke runs to the girls' bathroom of a different school where he sees a girl being bullied. Well, she is being undressed and recorded, which somehow would have piqued his interest. But he realizes that the girl could probably go meet her grandma in heaven if the video goes out. So, instead of being Loki today, he decides to become Thor and destroys the girl's phones and flushes them and saves the girl. Later, he walks the girl home, but well, after a while, they all get teleported to the game world, along with the new girl, Yuka. She panics seeing the place and begins to cry after seeing the almost nude headless game master. He assigns Yuka her job, which is Fire Witch, and gives them their next quest. After the game master leaves, Yuka throws a tantrum and says that Yuusuke is a pervert. That's what happens when you try to be a hero and save a girl from getting her tape leaked. Then, they make a group of two and explore the map. Lu and Yuka are together and Lu asks her why'd she say that for Yuusuke. Being embarrassed, Yuka says that she was able to become closer to the bullies and that's all gone now because of Yuusuke. That proves that women really do lack brains. Anyways, Lu assures her that Yuka will be okay soon. After a while, they all get together where they spot a big bug. The bug releases a centipede and it kills Yuusuke and Lu right away. Yuka knows that it is her time to shine, but well, her magic is still low, so she ends up getting killed. Good thing Yuusuke gets revived, but he's angry how Yuka portrayed him as a pervert. Then, an idea snaps in his mind and crawls on the centipede and cuts off all its legs. After that, he knows he can't use Kyusu's sword, so he tells her to hold her and he holds her hands and kills the centipede by her hands, which helps them level up. Later at night, Lu has a dream about her tragic past, where her friend passed away when she was really young. Lu wakes up and sees Yuusuke working out, to which Yuusuke asks what's the matter. She holds his hand, probably his first female hand-holding moment, and says that she needs his help. Lu opens up to Yuusuke about her past trauma. In kindergarten, she was a troublemaker, but her life changed when she met Sayuri. Unfortunately, Sayuri was bullied and ultimately took her own life. Later, in elementary school, Lu faced harsh treatment from teachers because she was the daughter of a punk biker who bullied others as a child. To make matters worse, she had rebellious brothers with bad reputations. Despite these challenges, her friends stood by her, helping her realize they were her strength and that she had the power to change her world. Now, in a strange game world, she loses everything again and feels alone. Desperate to survive, she turns to Yuusuke for help, and he agrees. Then, they get taken to a village they had saved from a troll, only to find it in ruins. They meet a strange traveler who informs them that the village has been abandoned for 5 years. Yuusuke realizes that time flows faster in this world than in their original one. They ask the traveler about Reidoderbo, who tells them it's on the other end of the continent, a 30-day journey on horseback, and 3 times longer on foot. Without horses, they feel stuck. The traveler mentions a martial arts tournament in Cortonal with 3 horses as the prize, so they decide to enter the tournament and level up before heading there. However, they are attacked by bald bandits. Yuusuke injures one bandit, but the game master lowers his rank for making an attack on them. Yuusuke realizes the danger and tells everyone to stop fighting and run to save themselves, but Lu goes missing in the process and is likely captured. Yuusuke is torn about rescuing her, but the girls look out for their girl and tell him to stop acting like top G. Yuusuke suggests splitting up. He will enter the tournament while Kyusu and Yuka try to save Lu. However, after calling bluffs, the girls are also captured. Making Yuusuke alone again, he levels up and becomes a creature wizard. Now, Yuusuke enters the tournament, but all that toxic masculinity is flushed when he is yeeted in 5 seconds by a female knight. After waking from this nightmare, Yuusuke asks Kabul for help reaching Raidoderbo in exchange for the horses. She agrees if he helps her kill some monsters. They decide to attack the bandits and earn a horse by revealing the bandits' location to the knights. Kabul then trains Yuusuke in sword fighting. At night, they surprise the bandits, who release a berserker. Kabul struggles to fight the berserker, but Yuusuke uses his creature magic to trick it, allowing Kabul to kill it. They rescue the girls, and Yuusuke admits he lost the tournament but got one horse. Kabul offers to escort them to Raidoderbo with some of her men and train them with the sword in exchange for keeping the horse once they arrive. But now here comes another sad story. It starts with Kyusu sharing her past struggles, recalling how her sickness kept her from doing well in physical education. She's determined to change this by studying medicine to find a cure for herself and her mom. When Knights and Yuusuke save her, she sees violence firsthand and realizes its importance for survival, leading her life in a new direction. Back in the present, as the sun sets, the group decides to camp. Yuusuke cooks for everyone, and Kyusu is set on getting stronger. Kabul suggests starting their tough training. Then, Yuusuke warns Yuka about Kabul's hard training, mentioning his low success rate in practice fights. She showed him real hell where men belong in the world of feminism. Yuka understands the harshness of it now. Later, Kabul chooses Yuka for training, leaving her scared. After her turn, Yuka mentions the pain is less than in real fights but still hurts her soul. Kyusu eagerly waits for her turn. Just then, Kabul's subordinates come in injured by goblins. Yuusuke heals the soldier's wounds, while Kyusu cries how she's become as useless as Sakura. The next day, Kyusu is training to become stronger, but she can't even lift her sword. As they go on their journey, they encounter a group of goblins and fight them. Kyusu accidentally kills one and apologizes to the goblin for killing it, the type of girl who apologizes to the sword for stabbing it. At the camp, Kyusu asks Kabul why she enjoys slicing living flesh, and Kabul excitedly explains the pleasure it gives her. Kabul then goes to look for more goblins to attack to satisfy her psycho desire, but female rage is something of heaven sent. Yuusuke recalls Kabul's daddy issues, Kabul's father telling her that the best training involves fighting real opponents with a real sword. But he thinks Kabul misunderstood and was overly influenced by this advice. While traveling, they face a hurdle, so they sit to bond and learn about each other. After a while, they spot people getting attacked by monsters. Kyusu insists on helping, even if alone. Yuusuke suggests continuing the quest, but Kyusu's emotional speech convinces him otherwise. Yuusuke bluffs that this might be part of the quest to save people and proposes they split up. The main group continues to raid Oderbo, while he and Kyusu go to help. As they approach, Yuusuke realizes the monsters are kobolds. They fight but are quickly defeated, though they manage to kill one kobold, leaving two. Kyusu revives first and distracts a kobold, ultimately stabbing it with her longsword. Yuusuke revives and calls the remaining kobold, and as it nears, Kabul appears and decapitates it. The rescued group says they are soldiers from the kingdom of Diok, ordered by the king to take heretics to raid Oderbo. These heretics broke the law by following the foreign religion Arteros. Since raid Oderbo has many Arteros followers, they plan to execute the heretics there to set an example. Yuusuke wonders if helping these heretics will help or hurt their mission. The moment begins with Kabul questioning Kamilto, who plans to execute his own citizens. They argue over authority. Seeing that, Lu tries to ease the tension by asking Yuusuke to help her in the puddle. Yuusuke calls the heroes and they discuss their situation. Then, Yuusuke points out that executing the prisoners could be considered harming humans, causing them to fail their quest. The group faces a dilemma about the prisoners since they cannot allow the humans to die. They choose to continue toward Raid Oderbo, postponing the decision. They proceed to head towards their journey. Dope Kingdom guards are gossiping like Karens with cheating husbands, wondering the safety of traveling with the heroes accompanied by a foreign knight. But Kamilto says they have no choice as they cannot kill prisoners before execution. Yuusuke is trying to save the child who is in critical condition. At dusk, they stop for the night. Kabul is anxious because she would rather die than take orders from a man. Yuusuke speaks with a prisoner named Fofsel, a missionary. Fofsel wants the child to survive, even if the rest cannot. Yuusuke asks why the kingdom hates Arteros so much. Fafsel explains the kingdom split between those who worship the king and those who worship both the god and the king, leading to a prohibition of the religion and the execution of its believers. Yuusuke then questions Camilto about taking the prisoners to Raid Oderbo for execution. Camilto explains that the prisoners came from the continent of Ila, and they want to stop others from coming. Raid Oderbo is the gateway, so they plan to set an example there. Camilto also explains that their kind king, King Diakvi, did not abandon his veteran soldiers and war orphans, giving them slaves and continuing to conquer to unify the continent and help its people. Yuka disagrees, saying she dislikes dictatorship. Camilto gets angry, but Yuusuke calms the situation by agreeing with Camilto. Later, Lu and Kaval practice together. Kaval thinks they need a plan and moves that can really hurt, especially since the soldiers are too fast for them. After that, they get to a mountain, and Camilto tells them it'll take a whole week to go over it. But he knows a shortcut. They decide to take it and go into the mountain, which has a big machine inside. But Camilto tricks them by locking the door and leaving them to find their own way out. Along the way, they run into big swinging hammers on the path. Yuusuke sees some pillars and figures out how to stop the hammers by moving them. Then, they come to a part with a wall on one side. Yuusuke slips and falls down a hole. He tells the others to keep going while he tries to get out. Kyusu figures out how to get past the wall and they all make it through. As the group travels through the mountain, they come to a big open space that looks like an arena. On the other side, they see scary creatures on the wall. Kaval recognizes them as gargoyles, which are monsters made by people. Even after many years, they can still move if their body fluids are taken out and they're mummified. Suddenly, one of the gargoyles gets fluid put back in it, and it wakes up, leaving everyone shocked. Yuusuke uses his knife to carve footholds in a wall. He climbs, falls, dies, and revives repeatedly. Each death as painful as the last. He remembers his lonely school years where he had no friends and was always left out. Now, he's determined to succeed. Basically like yourself, but without the succeeding part. He climbs the wall again and succeeds. A certain bad guy energy takes over him, making him 10x hotter. His eyes turn red as he addresses the game master, saying that he must have made it unclimbable, but Yuusuke is built different. Using a map with a down point view, Yuusuke sees a green light flashing. He checks it and finds his group mourning a fallen soldier, Bimsberg. Kaval begins saying goodbye to Bimsberg, and Yuusuke remembers his times with Bimsberg and blames himself for his death, thinking it happened because he joined Kaval. After saying farewell to Bimsberg, Yuusuke continues on his path. Meanwhile, the other members face a bigger challenge, the gargoyle and its bat minions. The bats attack the girls. Kaval is aroused to fight the gargoyle. Then, Lu shows her a key on Gargoyle's arm, and Kaval goes to get it. Lu hits a bat, and Kaval praises her skills. It's all thanks to her tennis training. Lu remembers her last match where she cried but agreed. Just then, the gargoyle pierces Kaval, and she falls into the water. The gargoyle is about to attack Lu when her rank changes to 10, freezing time. The game master congratulates her and spins a wheel to give her a new role. Lu remembers Yuusuke saying that during the game's freeze, you can get closer to your enemy. So, Lu becomes a warrior and attacks the gargoyle, but can't cut him. The gargoyle hits her, almost knocking her off the platform. She sees a cut on the gargoyle from Kaval's sword and recalls Kaval's training to aim for fatal points. Lu targets the gargoyle's heart and, despite losing her sword hand and shield, manages to pierce his heart from the neck. Now Yuusuke heads towards his friends, remembering a time when he faced a bear in the woods to protect his playmates. He realizes his role as a protector and questions his purpose in the game. When he reaches his friends, he's surprised to see the gargoyle dead, killed by Lu. The team tells him about Kaval. Without hesitation, Yuusuke jumps off the platform to save her. Kaval wakes up in a shelter and learns from a soldier that Yuusuke saved her by using monster blood and used the last of it. After he dozed off, Kaval kissed Yuusuke gently. He is raised up in the new world. The other girls ask her why, and she explains it just happened, and asks if they have any claim on him. They deny it. Kaval shares that in her country, ranks are important and she feels average compared to her top-ranked family. She joined the journey to gain real battle experience. Yuusuke wakes up and realizes their third quest was vague about which village or chief's request to fulfill, just like the previous quests. He concludes that anything identified as goods can complete their quest. He notes that no one expects the prisoners, so they might not be the goods. Yuusuke decides they need to split up to figure out the solution. Yuusuke suggests splitting into two teams, one to follow the cargo and the other to rescue prisoners from the Diok soldiers. They don't know what the goods mean, so they can't risk the mission. Kyusu agrees that a wrong move could be dangerous. They form Group A to go after the cargo and Group B to follow the soldiers. Kaval wants to avenge her fallen comrade. Then, Lu suggests escorting merchants to complete the quest, but Kyusui proposes delivering goods to Raid Otorbo, which they all agree to. Later, Yuusuke updates Team B on Team A's progress while Yuka wonders why she's in the more dangerous group. She doesn't want to die a pure maiden. Kaval believes the soldiers don't know they escaped the cave, so they can attack them, but she's worried about a message the soldiers might have sent to the kingdom. If they kill the soldiers now, the kingdom might declare war on Kaval's country. Yuusuke suggests making the soldiers write a letter saying Cortonal isn't their enemy, but they don't know the language, so they need to convince the soldiers to write it willingly. Yusuke's dark side emerges, wanting the kingdom to feel despair and humiliation, which makes Yuka and Kaval shocked, but any gothic girl would have gotten her Victoria's Secret soaked up after that. On the other hand, Group B finds the prisoners and follows them. At night, Yuka jokes about Yuusuke being destined to be a devil, not a hero. She asks Yuusuke if a kiss in this virtual world would count as a real first kiss. Yuusuke jokes back, and Yuka gets angry, calling the question hypothetical. Meanwhile, Camilto takes command after higher-ranking officers die and orders his soldiers to execute prisoners in Raid Otorbo. Yuusuke appears, says he's there to negotiate, and warns that fighting him is useless since he can heal or revive instantly. He demands 3 believers or threatens to spread the religion using his immortality, giving them until dawn to decide. The soldiers plan to capture Yuusuke, but Yuka offers to help. Skeptical, they follow her but stab her when they don't find Yuusuke. Back at their tents, they find Yuusuke with the dead bodies of Artero's followers. Yuusuke sets a survivor on fire, and Yuka uses her powers to set herself free and escape on a horse. In a flashback, Yuusuke knocks out a soldier and tells the prisoners to take off their clothes. Now the kingdom can't go after Cortonal, as they think Kaval and her soldiers are dead. Yuusuke enjoys the thought of Camelotto's suffering. Yuka finds this side of Yuusuke strange but doesn't want to make him an enemy. Well, Group A struggles with their plan to find a wagon to Raid Otorbo. Yuusuke takes Yuka to a cave where the prisoners are hiding. The prisoners thank them, and a kid calls Yuka pretty. Then, Yuka leaves the cave before someone calls 911. Yuka recalls Yuusuke's plan to use dolls and a human to make it look realistic. So, Yuusuke reassures her that it's just a game, but Yuka wonders if killing a man to stop a war was worth it, even in a virtual world. Yuusuke says they can't afford to worry about others. Yuka feels uneasy about Yuusuke's perspective and wonders if he sees the girls as just game characters. Yuusuke compares their situation to a bus hanging off a cliff where everyone's life is at stake, and they can't worry about others. Suddenly, Yuusuke's rank drops from 9 to 7. Here, King Didiok manipulates his soldiers for a mission like your ex-girlfriend manipulated you into taking care of them. Camilto is excited to be near the king. Later, Camilto, feeling tricked by Yuusuke and fearing the king's punishment, sends a message with an angry bird-like chicken. Kaval then appears, slicing a soldier, and declares she will punish them instead of the king. Camilto is shocked because he thought Kaval was dead. Kaval, giving a badass aura, tells him to pick up his weapon. Just as he's about to attack, she cuts off his hands. Kaval asks if he has any last words. Camilto says he wanted to bring peace to the world, but Kaval mocks him, saying peace can't be achieved by pulling an araignée jur. She then slices his head, and red sauce drips from his head. On the other hand, a man is updating the king, suggesting rescuing Camilto, but the king refuses. He reports that the supposed Enlutral heroes have turned against them due to Camilto's actions. The king orders to find ways to kill the heroes, and the Sakuna-like man gets on it. The group wonders if their letter plan worked since they don't know what Camilto wrote to the kingdom. Yuka believes it was successful as they freed the prisoners, though there's still time to reach their actual goal. She wonders why Group A hasn't made progress. Meanwhile, Group A finds a merchant, but he isn't heading to Raid Otorbo, and they can't find another, but Kyusu suggests something. Back with Group B, Yuusuke is filling boxes in a wagon. Yuka feels uncomfortable being in the same wagon as the child Riz's Yuka. She moves to the back. Yuusuke suggests she take the horse if she's uncomfortable. During their journey, Kaval frequently glances at Yuusuke, which makes Yuka wonder if Kaval likes him. They take a break, and Kaval wants to say something but she notices the child, making Yuka think she was about to confess. Yuka tries to play Cupid by swapping seats with Yuusuke, but they all fall asleep in the wagon. Her plan to bond them through cooking fails when Kaval brings a huge boar. Yuka then suggests Yuusuke train with Kaval, hoping they'll bond, but Kaval asks Yuka to train with her next. Frustrated, Yuka throws a tantrum over her failed plans. Back to Team A, Kyusu suggests there might be delivery companies in this world, and they find a carrier heading to Raid Otorbo. They ask to join, but the courier guy acts like a Sigma but Lu teaches him. In the other team, Yuka sulks over her failed plans and dozes off. Kaval joins Yuusuke by the fire, hesitates but finally thanks him for helping her avenge her comrade. Tima heads to Raid Otorbo with the courier, who now obeys like well-behaved puppies after Lu's smackdown. Yuusuke says they need to review their plan on arrival. They have 4 wagons, one with the prisoners they saved. They plan to deliver the prisoners to a church for safety and hope this completes the quest. If not, they'll sell the belongings of dead soldiers. If that fails, they'll consider a third option, starting an OnlyFans. As they near their destination, the quest is marked as cleared. Team A thinks it's because of them, while Team B, who delivered boxes of Deok soldiers, thinks it's their doing. Regardless, both are happy to have cleared the quest. They need to follow the map. With a day and a half left, Yuusuke is about to speak, but the girls suggest splitting up, stealing his line, leaving him scratching his head. The Game Master gave them 2 quests and one of them is now complete, the second being to complete 5% of the map. So, they all are on to completing it. On the other hand, Kaval's subordinate tells her that they have to delay their departure because of the predicted snowfall. But Kaval, being a total lover girl, just misses Yuusuke and regrets that she couldn't tell him what she wanted to. Back to Yuusuke, he's feeling cold as heck and knows that he can't afford to die right now, so he keeps moving. Yuka tries to motivate herself to move because all her teammates are moving too, as she sees in the map. Meanwhile, Kyusu thinks about the memories with her teammates to motivate her to keep going in the harsh weather. And Lu feels lonely walking alone, which reminds her of the time when she first got here and was completely alone, but decides to keep moving for her teammates. Back to Kyusu, yeah, even if she acts tough, she isn't, and she is the first to faint. Then, Lu sees a statue which she has seen before and realizes that her hard work went down the drain and loses her motivation. Back to Yuusuke, as he was about to lose his motivation, there comes a Yeti and of course he has to fight it now. Being Yuusuke, he kills the Yeti. But well, Yeti had 3 small kids who now need a father figure, and guess who is just not ready to be a father and leaves them to rot in the snow? Of course, Yuusuke. The only thought Yuusuke had was to save his friends and he is their last hope. But well, the girls gotta toughen up because Yuusuke falls from the snow and his status shows that he died. On the other hand, the 3 girls have fainted from the cold weather and are covered in snow. Yuka thinks about how she is a hypocrite and she can never be a hero. A pick-me girl having realization is just like your dad taking your responsibility, impossible. On the other hand, Yuusuke is revived and finds himself in a very primitive dungeon. Meanwhile, Kyusu died of the cold and she sees that she can't move her body at all and begins to weep. But the good thing is, Lu begins to walk again and finally sees light, which indicates a village. She begins to run there, but oh, she is walking on water which begins to crack, and before she could realize, she falls inside of the water and dies. Yuusuke receives the notification that 2 members are now dead and tries to find a way outside of the dungeon. He couldn't find the way, but a huge earthworm emerges from the ground. At first, he wanted to scream like a little girl, but soon realized that the earthworm wouldn't eat him. Then, the earthworm begins to move in a direction which he keeps following. Suddenly, Yuusuke sees another bug which would totally devour him. Well, I sure wasn't wrong about it, because Yuka gets the notification that all 3 of her teammates are now dead, and she decides to give up too. But well, her mind plays tricks on her and Yuka's childhood stars show up and tell her to keep going for her friends. So, Yuka now feels motivated and begins to move again. Before she could go further, a brown hottie shows up on a big cat and offers to help her. Because of her help, the quest gets completed and all Yuka's friends are revived and gathered by the Game Master. Now the Game Master rewards her with a question and Yuka asks him if this world is real or virtual. The Game Master tells her that this world sure is real, but they don't belong here and they are virtual in this world. As soon as Yuusuke hears that, he realizes that he burned an actual human and not someone virtual. And boy, the guilt is so real in every world of ending a life that Yuusuke can't stop thinking about it. But suddenly, despite being anxious, he lets out an evil laugh. Later at school, Yuusuke plays basketball with his mates and they are just baffled how Yuusuke is doing all the work alone. Even Lu and Kyusu are feeling the changes in their bodies because of all the work they've been giving in the other world. But they feel bad for Yuusuke and they don't know what to say to him. Console him for a crime. Sounds ironic. After school, Yuusuke gets a text from the Game Master who asks how it feels after killing someone. Having no answer, he deletes the text and suddenly a little girl shows up in his room. Yuusuke realizes that it's the Game Master and talks to him about his feelings, as if the Game Master is his unpaid therapist. He tells that at that moment, he thought the man deserved to die, but the conclusion comes out that Yuusuke did wrong. So, the Game Master plans to make Yuusuke meet their next game member and takes Yuusuke to a restaurant. The Game Master says that in a few seconds, a man will be killed by a man and his brother whose name is Tori. Then, the killers enter the restaurant, but Yuusuke stops them and starts beating them. The chef calls someone and tells him that a middle schooler ruined the entire plan. A man shows up to kill Yuusuke, but the Game Master gives Yuusuke the glove, which is from the parallel world. Now, Yuusuke has control over the situation and knocks out the guy. Yuusuke tells Tori to escape with his brother. Later, at night, Yuusuke talks to the Game Master that he understands the plan why he wanted him to save Yuka before and now Tori, so they could win their quests. Then, the Game Master asks him what is the value of life in his eyes, to which Yuusuke says that there is no value in that blonde head because he is easy to manipulate. On the other hand, Lu is sitting with her friends and hears a police van and wonders what's going on. Meanwhile, Kyusu feels very normal about the situation, which is unlike her because she tends to get scared easily. And Tori and his brother are making an escape. Coming back to Yuusuke and the Game Master asks him if he came to that conclusion because he thinks he is some amazing virtual player. But Yuusuke says that he thinks of no such thing, but the inner voice he has tells him that whatever he's doing is right. Then, he says that he will always fight for the unique way of justice, as he always did before. Meanwhile, Shuji and Tori were playing at home when their mother returned, clearly intoxicated. She stumbled and leaned on Tori's shoulder for support. Shuji quickly fetched a glass of water for her, and she began to embrace both Shuji and Tori. However, the situation took a dark turn as their house descended into chaos. A debtor arrived to collect money from their mother, and he began to physically breezy her right in front of the terrified siblings. Tori felt a surge of anger and a desire to fight back, but Shuji held him back out of fear for their safety. The debtor presented an unexpected proposition to Shuji and Tori. If they completed a task for him, they could pay off their debt within a month. The task involved eliminating a traitor for the debtor. Donning masks, they set out for a bar, but their journey was abruptly halted by a mysterious figure named Yatsuya, who possessed magical abilities. The following day, Yatsuya found himself in a classroom where other students excitedly discussed their plans for the upcoming summer vacation. Some students talked about the friendship between two classmates, Shindu and Hakazaki. Shindu was the most popular girl in the class, while Hakazaki remained in the shadows. Yatsuya, on the other hand, spent his night playing console games and pondering the dynamics between Hakazaki and Shindu. Meanwhile, Kyusu was engrossed in her laptop, reviewing a group chat involving Yatsuya, Shindu, Hakazaki, and herself. Yatsuya checked the group chat and realized that they hadn't received any missions in a week. Suddenly, they found themselves transported to the same location they had first encountered in the new world. Tori was submerged in a pool, reminiscent of the river full of monster worms where Yatsuya had previously found himself. Emerging from the water, Tori's appearance had changed dramatically, now resembling a punk biker. As the surroundings shifted, the enigmatic Game Master made an appearance, and everyone anticipated Tori's reaction. Tori screamed in terror as the Game Master touched his shoulder, revealing a grotesque half-headed face. The Game Master spun a wheel to determine Tori's role in this world. He was designated as the Warrior of Spears. Their new quest was to offer the Jiffen Buffo at Victomania, and their revival time had increased along with the acquisition of new abilities. Yatsuya proposed that they begin their journey by heading to Courtunnel to learn more about their new quest. Tori, still struggling to understand the situation due to being a middle school dropout, decided to accompany them. However, before proceeding, Tori challenged Yatsuya to a duel. If Yatsuya refused, Tori wouldn't use their fast travel ability. Yatsuya attempted to use mind control, but Tori dodged at the last moment and defeated Yatsuya, earning the right to use fast travel. They utilized fast travel to meet Cable in Courtunnel. Shindu provided Tori with a brief explanation of the situation. However, due to Tori's limited comprehension, he struggled to grasp the details. Nevertheless, Tori chose to join their quest. Gratitude for Yatsuya's earlier assistance in evading the debt collector, who had been apprehended by the police, played a role in Tori's decision. Yatsuya remained preoccupied with thoughts of Cable and a burning desire to become stronger. Later, as he lay in bed reflecting on Cable, she entered his room, and they ventured outside to gaze at the night sky and converse. Cable held Yatsuya's hand and shared memories from their previous journey, which had helped her endure the harrowing battlefield experiences of the past 15 years. As they watched the sunrise, Cable confided in Yatsuya, confessing her love for him with a kiss, tears welling in her eyes. Unbeknownst to them, Shindu and the others, except Tori, overheard their conversation. Meanwhile, Hakazaki and the others encountered a middle-aged man who greeted them warmly. The man turned out to be Thekis, whom Hakazaki had once saved from a troll monster. This heartwarming encounter reminded them of the unique and fleeting experiences they were having in this new world. The heroes secured a boat and embarked on their journey, accompanied by other mercenaries. Tori struggled with seasickness, but they eventually arrived at their destination, where they were greeted by two beautiful young girls. However, the girls became irate upon discovering that the heroes were not mercenaries. Despite this, the heroes inquired about Victomania and the Jiffen Buffo. The girls explained that Victomania was a harvest festival, and Buffo were a type of cow. Yet, a problem had arisen regarding the Jiffen Buffo. Humamo Castle, an impregnable fortress built by the ancestors of the Jiffen people 400 years ago, had been occupied by a group of terrifying men, orcs, for the past 5 years. These orcs not only waged war against the Jiffen people but also resorted to cannibalism. To protect themselves, the Jiffen people had replaced themselves with Buffo, breeding them for the orcs. However, the orc population was growing, and if left unchecked, they would resume hunting the Jiffen people. Therefore, the Jiffen sought mercenaries to exterminate the orcs, starting with their queen when she came to claim the buffo. While Tori seemed nonchalant about the task, the heroes were aware that they were not as strong as the orcs. Unknown to the heroes, one of the traitorous human spies working for the orcs had already informed the orc queen about their presence. In the midst of their preparations for the impending battle against the orcs, the mercenaries began training the people of Jiffen in the art of combat and the use of weapons. The heroes also engaged in discussions with the mercenaries, led by Cantle, who had extensive experience in battling orcs. As Yotsuya leaned in to shake Cantle's hand, Tori impulsively jumped forward to be the first to greet him. Tori struck up a conversation with Cantle, eager to learn more about orc combat tactics. Cantle emphasized the formidable nature of orcs, highlighting their massive weapons and deadly fists, capable of delivering instant death with a single blow. To survive, Cantle stressed the importance of attacking efficiently and retreating immediately, employing hit-and-run tactics to stay outside the orc's lethal range. He expressed concern for Yotsuya, who only possessed short blades and was at a greater risk of sustaining fatal injuries. Tori boldly declared his intent to protect Yotsuya and the others from the orcs, playfully taunting as he slapped Lu's back. Cantle had initially assumed that anyone unable to wield a sword could use a bow, but Yotsuya lacked proficiency in archery as well. Recognizing his limitations, Yotsuya decided to return to the village to level up and improve his skills. Back in the village, he sought information from the girls about potential threats beyond the orcs. The girls informed Yotsuya that their ancestors had eliminated all other monsters on Jiffen long ago. Experience in this world was primarily gained by defeating monsters, but other avenues included magical abilities for wizards or culinary skills for chefs. Tasks related to one's job also contributed to experience gain, prompting Yotsuya to consider farming as a means of leveling up. Yotsuya began working on a farm where his proficiency in picking fruits became evident. However, the island's frequent tremors prevented the fruits from growing too large, often knocking them off the branches. Moreover, the shortage of buffo dung, which was used as fertilizer, affected the island's agriculture due to the orcs' voracious appetite. Jiffen, being a volcanic island, had soil deficient in organic matter necessary for plant growth. Yotsuya brainstormed alternative fertilizers and devised a new product using seaweed and seashells mixed with soil. As he worked to implement this solution, Yina, one of the girls, informed him that the Vakdom had to remain virgins, as losing their virginity would disqualify them from their role. Yina, at 27, and her companion, aged 25, had missed their chance for marriage due to the scarcity of girls. Other potential Vakdom had fallen victim to the orcs. Fueled by the urgency of their mission, Yotsuya resolved to level up quickly. He prepared meals for the girls, harnessed magic to expedite fertilizer production, and diligently toiled on the farm. Meanwhile, Shindu and the other heroes focused on battle preparations. Katz, one of the mercenaries, diligently crafted a map of the island, aiding in their understanding of the terrain, a vital aspect of their upcoming battle. During training, one of the Jiffen locals grew frustrated and lashed out at a mercenary. Cantle attempted to defuse the situation. As they debated orc tactics, an unexpected encounter occurred. An orc suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, the mercenaries and heroes engaged the orc in battle, but tragedy struck as Tori and Lu were slain with a single strike. As they awaited revival, a mercenary successfully dispatched the orc. Amid discussions about the presence of orcs outside the castle, a Jiffen resident revealed the existence of a traitor within their ranks. The population split into factions, with some supporting the mercenaries and others opposing them. Thanza, a former Jiffen who had run away years ago, stepped forward to reason with the crowd, invoking the pride and integrity of their ancestors. His impassioned words inspired a newfound determination among the people, swaying the balance in favor of the mercenaries. The traitorous informant conveyed information about the orc's death and the mercenaries' plans to the orc queen. Deeply affected by the loss of their comrade, the orc queen resolved to seek vengeance. Finally, after much hard work and determination, Yotsuya achieved a rank up in his abilities. However, his new job as a blacksmith was quite unexpected. Cable's earlier words about Jiffen's reputation for artisan weapons came to mind. The girls introduced him to an experienced blacksmith, who took Yotsuya under his wing as his apprentice. Yotsuya threw himself into the craft, creating a new weapon called the Stork, an axe with a detachable stake for delivering powerful blows. He also forged lightweight weapons for Hakazaki and Toki. As Yotsuya returned to the forge to create more weapons for Toki and Hakazaki, Tori engaged him in conversation about his preferences among the three female heroes. Tori expressed his interest in Lu, playfully attempting various moves on her. However, Yotsuya remained focused on his work and showed little interest in romantic pursuits. Despite the challenges and obstacles they faced, the heroes and mercenaries continued their intense preparations for the impending battle against the orcs. Cantle, a seasoned leader, exuded confidence in their readiness. Suddenly, the orcs launched an attack on the harbor, setting the stage for a critical confrontation. Rice, a member of the mercenaries, began sharing his own harrowing past with the heroes. He recounted how he had joined the mercenary group after his homeland had fallen, and his friends had met a tragic end at the hands of their enemies. As he described his experiences, he maintained a cheerful demeanor, even though he had witnessed true hell. Yatsuya couldn't help but marvel at Rice's ability to smile despite his grim history, while Cantle, overhearing their conversation, listened intently from behind a nearby rock. As their ship moved out of the harbor, a sudden and violent attack struck. 3 formidable orcs assaulted the harbor, catching Lu and Tori off guard. Lu and Tori valiantly tried to engage the orcs, but their thick, rock-hard skin made them nearly impervious to the heroes' attacks. Tragically, Lu and Tori were swiftly killed in an instant. Cantle found himself facing the daunting task of confronting 3 massive orcs alone. Just as the orcs were about to attack Cantle, an arrow from an unknown source pierced one of the orcs, instantly slaying it. The remaining orcs shifted their focus back to Cantle, but it was then that Rice boldly leaped into action to divert the orcs' attention away from Cantle. Rice's distraction allowed the orcs to be lured closer to Yatsuya, who could then take better aim with his newly crafted weapon. Yatsuya seized the opportunity and struck one of the orcs, injuring its shoulder. Sensing that the odds were no longer in their favor, the orcs chose to retreat. As they discussed their next steps, Tanza, carrying an injured man, approached them. Yatsuya immediately began tending to the wounded man, while the rest of the group rallied for battle. With everyone in their designated positions, Rice and Yatsuya decided to act as decoys, diverting the orcs' attention. This allowed Hakozaki and Toki to utilize Yatsuya's new weapon effectively. 2 formidable orcs soon emerged, and Rice and Yatsuya took on the task of splitting the orcs' focus. During the battle, Toki skillfully hit one of the orcs in the pelvis, knocking it down. This victory resulted in Toki's rank up, and she assumed the role of a hunter-thief, adorned in blue armor. Delighted with her new status, Toki affectionately referred to herself as Yatsuya's favorite character. Yatsuya, still in the heat of battle, engaged the remaining orc in a fierce confrontation. However, his close-range weapons proved ineffective against the orc's robust defenses, resulting in Yatsuya's swift demise. While Yatsuya was in the process of revival, the orc began launching massive boulders, causing considerable damage to the village walls. The breach in the wall allowed the orcs to invade the village. Rice valiantly attempted to attack the orc from behind, but his sword shattered upon impact. In return, Rice received a devastating blow that left his body twisted and drenched in blood. Yatsuya, Toki, and Hakozaki rallied to defeat the remaining orcs, putting an end to the immediate threat. News of Rice's tragic demise spread quickly among Cantle and the others. As they grieved, another orc attack loomed on the horizon. Toki and Yatsuya dispatched the orc in the eastern part of the village, leaving only 5 orcs remaining. Before heading out to confront the remaining orcs, Yatsuya and the others decided to resupply on bullets. They also paid their respects at Rice's grave, honoring his sacrifice. Meanwhile, Cantle and Lu discovered the queen orc attempting to attack the children aboard a ship at sea. Having lost all her sons, the queen sought vengeance by targeting the Jiffen children, who were perceived as the transgressors for breaking the pact. The orcs, despite their growing numbers, had agreed to maintain the pact, but the islanders felt compelled to eliminate the orcs to prevent them from resuming their cannibalistic ways. The situation had become increasingly complex, blurring the lines between good and bad in this tense conflict. Cantle and Lu found themselves facing the formidable queen orc, who regarded humans as foolish creatures despite their greater intelligence. The queen believed that humans had forgotten the debts they owed and craved battle, deeming them barbaric and cruel. In the midst of this standoff, Thanza managed to eliminate one of the 2 orcs. The queen retaliated by launching a furious assault, but Cantle and Lu managed to land damaging blows on her. In a bold move, Cantle issued a direct challenge to the queen, and another mercenary named Lal sacrificed his life to protect a villager from the orc threat. Desperate for bullets to aid in their battle against the orcs, Yatsuya and the villagers sought refuge at the blacksmith's shop. However, the bullets available there were incompatible with Yatsuya's weapon. Yatsuya and the villagers decided to embark on a journey toward Vakadam Cave, but there was a catch. Only bullets made by a non-hero blacksmith and loaded by a non-hero villager could be used. One villager chose to stay behind to assist Toki and Hakozaki. Cantle lay in ambush, waiting for an opportune moment to strike the queen orc. Meanwhile, the injured were transported to Vakadam Cave for medical treatment. Yatsuya confronted another orc on his own. It appeared that only a few orcs remained within the castle, and Yatsuya pondered whether their combined numbers would be sufficient to take them on without proper planning. Tori, lacking a concrete strategy, led the villagers in an ill-advised charge toward the orc guarding the castle. Thanza found himself locked in combat with an orc, but he was eventually overpowered and flung against a rock. While Cantle and Lu continued their attempts to ambush the queen from behind, a massive earthquake suddenly shook the island. The volcano began erupting, causing the orc facing Thanza to become distracted. Thanza seized the opportunity and dealt a fatal blow, cutting through the orc's shoulder to its belly, ending its life. Inside Vakadam Cave, the cave's ceiling collapsed onto the entrance, trapping Ayu inside. The earthquake led to a receding of the water off the shore, a sign of an impending tsunami. Anna began singing their ritual song, though it seemed futile given the circumstances. In a desperate bid to escape the catastrophe, Ayu managed to use a minecart within the cave to find her way to a secret passage that led her into Kamama Castle. There, Tori and Yatsuya crossed paths with Ayu as she entered the castle through the secret passage. The tsunami swept away houses, farms, and other structures on the island, leaving destruction in its wake. Yatsuya questioned Ayu about the role of the Vakadam, and she confirmed that they were the island's historians and storytellers, responsible for preserving its history. Yatsuya inquired about the castle's weaknesses, hoping to find a point that, if struck with sufficient force, could bring the entire structure down, eliminating the orcs within. Ayu, however, protested vehemently against the idea of destroying the castle, as it held deep cultural and historical significance for the Jiffen people. She explained that their ancestors had poured their wisdom and ingenuity into building it, and it had no known weaknesses. Yatsuya entered the castle in search of a strategic advantage, prompting Tori to label him as a machine that pursued goals without hesitation. Ayu couldn't comprehend Yatsuya's relentless pursuit of his objectives, even if it meant self-sacrifice. Yatsuya clarified that when the goal was clear, the process held no significance. To Ayu, the only meaningful course of action was to keep moving forward, unable to afford the luxury of inaction. Anna and Ayu shared their sorrow over the misfortunes facing the Jiffen people and pleaded for a better future, urging them to learn from past mistakes. As the volcano erupted with increasing intensity, a fire dragon emerged from its depths, heralding a new and perilous phase of their journey. The Orc Queen had already witnessed the massacre of her offspring in the past when she was taken hostage by a wizard. Somehow, she managed to escape the ship and ended up on the island of Jiffen. As a fire dragon ominously appeared in the sky, the situation grew increasingly dire. The hall where the orcs were stationed had a ceiling that shielded them from lava bombs. If the heroes were to engage the orcs in battle, they needed to lure them into a corridor with a lower ceiling. However, this corridor presented its own set of risks. While it limited the orcs' movements to some extent, it could also become a deadly trap if the heroes found themselves cornered. Yatsuya contemplated several options, one of which was to push the orcs off the veranda. However, when they attempted to execute this plan, the orcs halted and retreated. Plan B involved villagers drawing the orcs' attention and successfully eliminating one orc. Tragically, another orc swiftly took the lives of Yatsuya and Tori. As Yatsuya lay dying, he noticed a child clinging to the back of one orc. He urgently informed Ayu about the child orc with hair on its head. Ayu explained that the child was the next queen among the orcs, as most orcs were males who lacked hair on their heads. Queens had the unique ability to give birth to hundreds of offspring in their lifetime, and around 5 out of every 100 were females who, in turn, gave birth to another 100. Ayu had acquired this knowledge from a book titled All About Orcs, which had been imported to the island. She also knew a phrase in the orc language but was hesitant to use it. The Orc Queen had climbed aboard a ship and dislodged its anchor in an attempt to escape, with the intention of using the human children as her next meal. Meanwhile, the island itself was on the verge of sinking. As the Queen sailed back to gather her family, Thanza also scaled the ship. His enormous blade posed a significant threat to the Queen, but if she could get him to swing and miss once, she could potentially defeat him. Yatsuya devised another plan. He utilized a minecart and filled it with lava, with Tori perched on its edges. Yatsuya reflected on the differences between himself and Tori, including communication skills, pride, and interests. Despite his general disdain for humanity, Yatsuya found that he didn't harbor such feelings toward Tori. With everything prepared, they pushed the cart into action, and Ayu began shouting a phrase in the orc language, Dick Throb, which meant no, I am leg hair. This bewildered the orcs, causing them to hesitate. As Yatsuya and Tori rushed the orcs, they managed to kill one and injure another. They abducted the child orc, and Yatsuya informed Ayu about the situation. The life force of Anna and all those who had perished was gradually being drained, absorbed by the fire dragon in the sky. Under the pressure of the situation, the Queen realized that as long as Thanza wielded his massive sword, she couldn't launch a reckless attack. However, when another enormous wave distracted Thanza, the Queen seized the opportunity to close in on him. With a swift move, the Queen disarmed Thanza. Lu suddenly appeared on the scene, confusing the Queen. Due to the receding water, Lu's body was no longer submerged, allowing her to revive. Lu, without the aid of armor, dodged one of the Queen's attacks and inflicted a minor wound. Cutting through the queen in a single strike was not an option, so Lu began methodically slicing through layer by layer of the queen's flesh. Hakozaki found herself trapped in the blacksmith's shop, surrounded by lava. Toki arrived with a bullet she had obtained from a deceased orc but was tragically consumed by the lava. As Lu battled the queen managed to strike Lu in half, attempting to finish Thanza before Lu could revive. However, as the queen swung her sword, a surprise attack came from Lu, who had reappeared. The queen was momentarily distracted, and Hakozaki fired an orc-eater bullet into the queen's back. Overcome with pain and sorrow, the queen dropped her sword, and Thanza delivered a fatal blow by impaling her through the belly. With victory achieved, Yotsuya threw the child orc into the lava, but the queen managed to catch it. Determined to prevent any further orc offspring, Yotsuya swiftly stabbed the child orc to death. He watched with a heavy heart as the crying orc met its fiery demise, grappling with his complex feelings toward humanity's actions driven by convenience, even if they required the sacrifice of others. Turning away from the grim scene, Yotsuya rejoined Aoyu and Tori. Something troubled Aoyu. The shipwreck that had held the queen hostage was missing from the shoreline. The queen had arrived on Jiffin alone, leaving no signs of a bloody encounter. Aoyu could feel her own life force being drained, a disturbing mystery amidst the chaos. Thanza had always despised this island, feeling suffocated by its limited space, stagnant relationships, and the residents' refusal to learn about the world beyond. The islanders seemed content to live out their lives peacefully and die without ever seeking more. These constraints had driven Thanza to leave as a child, embarking on a journey to become a mercenary and hone his skills to their fullest potential. Now, as chaos unfolded on the island, Thanza desperately attempted to halt the ship's course. Meanwhile, Tori and Yotsuya ventured further onto the island and encountered a monk named Raji sitting beside a rock. Raji explained that he had been inspecting the land but had become stranded. Concerned for his safety, Tori and Yotsuya urged him to descend from the mountains, warning him of the impending release of poisonous volcanic gases. As Yotsuya and Tori pressed on towards the dragon, which was draining the life force from the islanders, they realized the extent of its power when Tori rushed into attack and was instantly incinerated by its fiery breath. Yotsuya wisely retreated, recognizing that he couldn't face the dragon directly. The dragon showed no interest in pursuing Yotsuya further, leading him to speculate about a strategy. If the dragon operated like other magic users, the closer it was to its target, the more effectively it could drain their life force. Yotsuya surmised that someone was casting a life-draining spell on the islanders, weakening them. Vakedam's magic wasn't strong enough to confront such a formidable opponent, so Yotsuya deduced that the best course of action was to evacuate the islanders, thereby forcing the dragon to retreat without a fight. As Yotsuya scoured the area, he unexpectedly encountered Raji still seated in the same spot. Yotsuya hastily picked him up and urged him to leave the mountains, warning of the impending poisonous gases. To his surprise, Raji erupted into wicked laughter, believing that his true identity had been exposed. Unbeknownst to Yotsuya, Raji was the dragon bishop who had summoned the Darashude dragon to the island, bringing along the orcs as well. In a moment of confusion, Yotsuya dropped Raji, and they stared at each other in mutual bewilderment. The bishop remained unaware of Yotsuya's ignorance about his true role. He admitted to orchestrating the arrival of the orcs on the island. Determined to put an end to this threat, the bishop attacked Yotsuya, killing him repeatedly. Tori hatched a plan to surprise attack the bishop, but the bishop proved too agile, and both Tori and Yotsuya found themselves frozen in place by Raji's powers. Raji then confronted Aoyu, attempting to harm her. Aoyu managed to evade his attacks and fled towards the castle. The bishop, who hailed from Block 3 and was considered a child prodigy, had been responsible for suggesting that houses be built in the lowlands. He was behind the mercenaries' arrival on the island and the ensuing orc massacre. However, as Raji attacked Aoyu, Yotsuya intervened, using his magic glove to cast a persuasive spell that momentarily froze the bishop. This allowed Tori to pierce the bishop's hand with his spear. Raji attempted to flee and dropped a mysterious potion in the process. He then drew something from the potion and etched it onto a nearby rock, a detail that Tori noted. As the dragon continued to siphon life force, Anna tracked the energy flow and discovered a 6-star magic circle. With determination, she erased it, reducing the dragon's life-draining influence on the island. Aoyu also located another magic circle and successfully eliminated it. The combined efforts of Anna and Aoyu caused the dragon to retreat back into the mountains and the volcano to cease its eruptions, marking a hard-fought victory. Yotsuya, gazing at Thanza, who had been covered in lava, reflected on the sacrifices made during the battle. All the mercenaries, save for one, had perished in the fight. Once the dragon was defeated, the heroes completed their quest and offered the buffo to Vakedamnia. Anna expressed gratitude to the heroes on behalf of the islanders. Aoyu rushed toward Yotsuya and embraced him, hinting that if he were from their world, she might have considered retiring and marrying him. Toki expressed confusion about why people liked Yotsuya, mentioning Kaval and now Aoyu. Hakozaki believed it was because Yotsuya treated others like real people, fostering genuine connections. Meanwhile, Cantle found himself adrift at sea on a log, waving towards Raji, who had been carried away by the dragon. Suddenly, a powerful blow pierced through the dragon's head, and both the dragon and Raji fell into the sea. The dragon was slain by the great sorceress Fatina. With the quest finally completed, Tori approached the game master and inquired about the dragon bishop's mission. It was revealed that the dragon bishop had been attempting to resurrect the dragon. As the heroes prepared to return to Tokyo, they faced the unsettling reality that their home city might not be a safe haven either. Furthermore, they encountered a new member who greeted Yotsuya in English, revealing that the white girl had instructed her to meet him. The new arrival greeted Yotsuya, introducing herself as Glenda. Speaking in English, she explained that she had come looking for him because the white girl, whom Yotsuya recognized as the game master, had instructed her to do so. Glenda was the 6th hero, joining their ranks. Yotsuya agreed to take her home. Glenda, a videographer on a journey to create an independent film, shared that she hadn't visited other worlds before. However, she was already familiar with the concept due to stories on the internet. 4 individuals, an American, a French person, an Egyptian, and a Japanese girl, claimed to have traveled to parallel worlds. Glenda revealed her preference for women and mentioned her admiration for the French woman, who had unfortunately passed away. The French woman's last words struck a chord with Yotsuya as she had died due to failing to complete a quest. Yotsuya introduced Glenda to Lu and Hakozaki, who began recording a video together. Lu acted as though she were in a parallel world, with Yotsuya taking on the role of the game master. They needed to act convincingly and planned to post the video online to attract other players. Yotsuya, dressing his friends as zombies, had written a script in which Glenda would rescue a girl from the undead. After completing the filming, Lu expressed her desire for Yotsuya to treat her as he did the villagers. A few days later, their short film was released, and within 10 days, they received a comment from someone claiming to be another player. All 6 heroes were summoned back to the parallel world. Glenda's new role was that of an axe warrior, while Hakozaki had ranked up to become a heavy sword warrior. They were given a new quest: reduce the addiction to rainbow stairs in the kingdom of Goldia to less than 3% within 90 days and prevent the destruction of the village of Zagroth within 30 days. Yotsuya contemplated the choice but was interrupted when Tori selected the second quest. Reluctantly, Yotsuya chose the same quest. They returned to Courtonal, discovering the house of Kaval. However, they learned that Kaval had already passed away. Her daughter, who had heard stories of her mother's adventures with the heroes as bedtime tales from a young age, helped them secure transportation with merchants. 17 years had passed since their last visit to Courtonal, and Yotsuya was still mourning Kaval's loss. As they journeyed through a forest, they encountered a formidable goblin. Tori impulsively attacked, but the goblin dodged and swiftly killed him. Yotsuya and Lu were unable to finish the goblin off, but Glenda beheaded it when it turned its attention to Hakozaki and Toki. According to Yotsuya's assessment of the goblin's difficulty level, it was ranked D, while regular goblins were typically rated F. During this encounter, Tori noticed someone watching them from a distance. Glenda attempted to catch the observer, but she ended up in a graveyard where a frightened child named Jesby was hiding in a house. Glenda asked Hakozaki to look after her, and the rest of the heroes gathered in the hut. Jesby introduced herself as being from Zagroth and offered to guide them to the village. Back at their camp, Yotsuya used his magic to grow vegetables when suddenly they heard screams. A human with a worm-like creature attached to their head was controlling the men, who were approaching Glenda. The man turned out to be Jesby's father. The parasite afflicting Jesby's father is known as the wire worm. Yotsuya had learned about them from other players when they posted an online video. The heroes struggled to eliminate the infected father, but Yotsuya acted without hesitation, beheading him as it was the most effective way to kill the parasite. Jesby lost consciousness during this ordeal, which triggered memories for Glenn about her own childhood and her alcoholic father. As they continued their journey, they encountered increasingly powerful monsters, necessitating the heroes to become stronger. Yotsuya scolded Hakozaki for hesitating to attack the parasite, but Glenn defended Hakozaki. Yotsuya eventually calmed down and urged Hakozaki to communicate if she felt unable to handle a situation, recognizing that he was already tainted by his experiences. The following day, Jesby guided them to the entrance of her village using a boat. A secret passage led them to a limestone cave, which in turn brought them to the village. After resting briefly, Jesby shared the dire situation with the heroes. A group of villagers had left in search of a better place to live due to increasingly powerful monsters and dwindling crops. Jesby's father and elder brother had gone on this journey, but her mother had fallen ill, leaving her alone with a younger brother. She had left the village to find her father, only to discover him infected. Despite the potential consequences, Jesby still wanted to return to the village to inform her mother of her father's death. Upon reaching the village entrance, Jesby decided to scout ahead to ensure that her return would not result in her execution by the village's chief. Lu believed that saving Zagroth might not be an immediate concern, but Yotsuya insisted that seemingly easy missions often concealed hidden dangers. They needed to ensure that Jesby wouldn't face execution upon her return to the village. Jesby returned with news of a clear path. As they entered the village, they encountered a boy named Frock who realized they were heroes. Jesby ran to Frock, her childhood friend and neighbor. Frock informed her about her mother's death and her younger brother's traumatic state, as he had not spoken or interacted with anyone since her mother's passing. While Yotsuya and Glenn explored the village and its population of around 100, Jesby's younger brother remained in a state of trauma at Frock's home. During their walk, they encountered Iris Dai Rio, the granddaughter of the village chief named Cox Dai Rio. Iris's caretaker confirmed her identity and mentioned that the village chief was not in need of heroes. Iris guided Glenn and Yotsuya to the chief's house, where they were greeted with apparent respect. The chief insisted that there was no need for the heroes' assistance in Zagroth, attempting to get rid of them. Unknowingly, Yotsuya dropped a hint about their connection to Jesby, which Iris confirmed by mentioning that she had seen Jesby with them. The chief then led them to the basement, where he revealed his true intentions and locked them in a jail cell.
I got you, homie!
While the heroes were trapped, Frock's mother informed them that both their families and Jesby's had been treated as outcasts, subjected to forced labor and isolation by the chief. This was all due to the chief's desire to set an example, which had led to Frock working as an outside village guard. The chief also raided Frock's house while pretending to be polite when encountering the other heroes. He offered them a hearty meal before ordering his men to capture Jesby as soon as the heroes were taken to his mansion. Glenn attempted to break out of the jail cell, but her efforts proved futile. As a result, Jesby was captured, and the chief imprisoned the remaining gang in a dungeon. As the heroes dangled precariously from the broken bridge, an unusual sound echoed through the air, distracting the chief momentarily. Capitalizing on this opportunity, Lu employed her wizard staff to summon a powerful gust of wind, knocking out the chief and saving them from their perilous situation. However, amidst the chaos, Glenn and Yotsuya both heard the unsettling cry of a strange monster in the distance. Meanwhile, back at Frock's house, the aftermath of their struggle left the residents in disarray. Determined to rescue Jesby, Frock decided to chase after the guards who were taking her to jail. The remaining heroes, having successfully captured and tied up the chief, proceeded to take him to his own house. Along the way, they encountered a group of worried villagers who had heard the monster's roar. The chief attempted to manipulate the situation, spinning lies to the villagers, accusing the heroes of treacherous actions. However, Frock managed to free himself from the guards who had pinned him down, thanks in part to the intervention of his mother. Tempers flared, and as Frock and the chief engaged in a heated argument, another roar echoed through the sky. Undeterred, the chief continued his efforts to sway the villagers, pointing fingers at Frock's family and Jesby, and threatening them with impending disaster, which he attributed to Jesby. Just as the villagers were beginning to turn on Frock and his mother, Tori was reminded of a traumatic childhood memory where he witnessed a debtor beating his own mother. Overwhelmed by anger, Tori punched the chief and unleashed his fury on the villagers, causing them to scatter in fear. Upon entering the mansion, the heroes were confronted by Iris, who threw the key to the jail into a well. Jesby expressed her gratitude to Frock, who advised her to return home. Despite his earlier argument with the chief, Frock decided to assist the heroes in their predicament. While on his way to the mansion, he encountered a monstrous snake-like creature. Frock promptly alerted the heroes about this enormous, unfamiliar threat. The heroes were taken aback by the colossal size of the monster, accompanied by an entire army of creatures. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and it became evident that the monsters were significantly more powerful than their usual counterparts. What puzzled them further was the unexpected alliance of various monster species, working together with a shared purpose. With less than 10 minutes before the monsters would reach the village, the heroes knew they couldn't face the overwhelming swarm with their current abilities. Frock decided to rally the remaining villagers and lead them to the chief's house for safety. Yotsuya racked his brain for a plan, and the chief suggested they use a bottomless well as an escape route. Hakazaki tested the well's depth, and to their relief, they discovered it connected to the limestone cave they had used to enter the village. However, the monsters began attacking the villagers, and a colossal monster with acidic capabilities claimed the lives of many, including Frock's mother, who sacrificed herself to protect Jesby and her younger brother. Iris and the chief descended into the well, followed by the heroes, just as the monstrous creature destroyed the well's entrance, rendering the latter unusable. Yatsuya observed that the monsters appeared to be acting under the influence of some external control, deliberately seeking to destroy the village. With only Frock, Jesby, Lannon, the chief, Iris, and themselves surviving, they emerged from the well 6 hours later on the opposite side of Zagroff. As they cautiously made their way through the forested area, they noticed footprints around the lake, indicating some form of population residing nearby. Proceeding with caution, Yatsuya and Glenn decided to investigate further. Their exploration led to the discovery of a settlement nestled within the forest. However, as they rested, a group of goblins emerged from the trees, eyeing the newcomers warily. In the settlement they stumbled upon, Yatsuya and Glenn discovered the inhabitants. Jesby, still deeply affected by the recent loss of her father, was overcome with grief as she recalled the painful memories. Meanwhile, Hakazaki and the others waited anxiously for Yatsuya and Glenn's return. The chief finally revealed his true intentions behind initiating the Journey of Hope, explaining that it was driven by a dire shortage of food and crops within the village. Just as he disclosed this, a sudden goblin attack descended upon the heroes. Tori swiftly instructed Toki to escort the non-heroic members to safety, while Lu, in the midst of the battle, achieved a remarkable feat. She leveled up after defeating 2 goblins, which led to her job advancement to an elite warrior of heavy swords. With newfound power, she deftly dispatched several more goblins. As Toki and the others fled, they unexpectedly encountered a goblin, only for it to be swiftly eliminated by Glenn, who was accompanied by Flock's brother. This settlement was established by those who had been sent on previous journeys of hope. During the evening, the villagers extended their hospitality to the heroes, offering them food. Jesby, still haunted by the traumatic loss of her family and fellow villagers, tearfully recounted the grim events she had witnessed. Yatsuya couldn't shake the feeling that the monsters were being manipulated by an external force and shared his suspicions with Dan, the settlement's leader. Yatsuya also expressed concerns about the potential threat of an impending monster attack on the settlement. In response to Glenn's inquiry, Dan revealed a village legend passed down through the ages. It spoke of New Eden, a place that promised eternal peace. The original objective of the Journey of Hope had been to search for this New Eden. The chief confirmed this notion, emphasizing that New Eden could only be found by those willing to embrace death. Jesby, drawing from a vague memory of her birth parents, recalled an intriguing detail about New Eden. It was a peaceful place located beyond the forest, with its own population. She implored the heroes to aid the villagers in their quest to find this mythical sanctuary. Dan, motivated by the potential for a brighter future, decided to lead the villagers on their journey to New Eden. However, he cautioned that the nearby goblin settlement could pose a significant obstacle. The following day, the villagers, accompanied by the heroes, embarked on their journey, their anxiety fueled by the ominous roar they had heard emanating from Zagroff. As night fell, they set up camp once more. Yatsuya, Lu, and Tori, meanwhile, decided to undertake a covert mission to infiltrate the goblin settlement. Glenn and Hakazaki remained behind to safeguard the villagers. Upon reaching the goblin settlement, Yatsuya employed creature magic to silently eliminate a guard goblin. Their intention was to eliminate the slumbering goblins, but to their surprise, the nests were empty. Suddenly, they found themselves ambushed as the goblins launched a fierce attack out of nowhere. Back at the camp, Glenn and Hakazaki engaged in a heartfelt conversation about their respective life experiences. The situation took a sudden turn when the village chief went missing. Toki discovered the chief's lifeless body along the riverbank, a single lethal strike ending his life. Glenn began to suspect the villagers, who had harbored deep-seated grievances against the chief. As Yatsuya and the others successfully cleared the goblin settlement, a few goblins managed to escape. Glenn uncovered a shocking revelation: Jaka had murdered the chief. Jaka openly confessed to the act in front of everyone. However, their unsettling discovery didn't end there. Later that night, as the heroes were strategizing their next moves, they noticed Iris entering Jaka's hut. Tori decided to follow her, only to discover that Iris had killed Jaka and was now infected by the dreaded wire worm. After Iris attacked Tori and was subsequently killed by him, her body was cremated to prevent any further complications. Tori, however, remained traumatized by the ordeal. Dan approached Yatsuya with concerning news. The elder villagers were displaying symptoms reminiscent of the life force absorption they had witnessed on Jiffin Island. This hinted at the presence of the dragon bishop, likely conducting another ritual. In an effort to lift Tori's spirits, Lu engaged him in a heartfelt conversation, helping him overcome his despair. They knew that they needed to be cautious if the dragon bishop was indeed nearby. Suddenly, their group was ambushed by goblins and other monstrous creatures, but they swiftly dispatched their attackers. A massive troll suddenly appeared and devoured Lu and Hakazaki. Cantle, who had become Fatina's student after being saved by her, intervened by attacking the troll. The troll, injured by Cantle's sorcery, fled the scene. Cantle informed Yatsuya that he was sent by Fatina, who had sensed the presence of a dragon bishop in Zagroff. He also shared vital information regarding a meteorite that had fallen from the sky in Zagroth. This meteorite possessed potent magical energy, which was amplifying the strength of the monsters in the area. Cantle further explained that the dragon bishops aimed to resurrect the dragons to bring about humanity's destruction. Cantle introduced Yggdrasil seeds, which could absorb and seal the meteorite's magical energy. Planting these seeds would weaken the monsters in the vicinity. Yotsuya set about planting the magic seeds to achieve this goal. Cantle departed to investigate the area for magic circles, leaving Glenn and Toki behind. Yotsuya and Tori decided to rescue Lu and Hakazaki while Glenn and Toki stayed to protect the villagers. They located the troll due to its massive size, and in their haste, Tori charged recklessly and was killed. Toki managed to shoot an arrow into the troll's eye, but she too was killed while attempting another shot. The troll lunged at Yotsuya but stumbled, allowing Tori to finish it off with a spear thrust to the head after reviving. Upon their revival, Hakazaki and Lu managed to cut their way out of the troll's belly. They discovered the main meteorite stuck on a waterfall mountain and speculated that New Eden might be located beyond the waterfall. As Flock regained consciousness, he realized that Jesby and Lonin were missing. He spotted Lonin near the colossal beanstalk, but Lonin claimed to have no recollection of having a sister. This left Flock bewildered. As Yotsuya and the others climbed toward the waterfall, they found themselves on a seemingly empty plateau. Suddenly, Yotsuya recalled the chief's cryptic words about dying to see Eden. Without hesitation, he leaped off the waterfall's edge and descended into the depths. Surprisingly, the current changed, propelling him upward into the heart of Eden, where he encountered a community of 320 people. However, something seemed amiss when Lonin failed to recognize Jesby. Flock was puzzled by Lonin's assertion that he had never had a sister. Glenn soon uncovered the shocking revelation that Jesby was, in fact, a member of the Dragon Bishop. Ancient times bore witness to the descent of dragons upon this world. Catastrophic forces from the sky reduced their number to 5, teetering on the brink of extinction. One of these mighty creatures was hurled into the heavens by the calamity's impact, where it still slumbers. The meteorite fragment discovered was most likely a shard of that very dragon, a fragment poised to hasten the world's demise. Glenn, driven by a need to uncover the truth, interrogated Jesby about her role in infecting Iris with the wireworm. It was revealed that Jesby had cast fabricated memories within the villagers, creating a fictional reality in which she never existed. Lonin, untouched by her spell, stood as living proof. Jesby had also orchestrated a plot to manipulate Jaka into murdering Cox, the village chief, by exploiting emotional drama and positioning herself as a victim of his perceived cruelty. As Glenn attempted to strike at Jesby, she displayed her true identity as a member of the Dragon Bishop. The confrontation escalated, with Jesby summoning a fearsome wyvern and revealing that she had also eliminated Bayan because he had grown suspicious of her. Surprisingly, Jesby had run into the heroes, who unwittingly aided her in her sinister plans. She allowed Flock's mother to perish and, when Flock attempted to attack her, unleashed a devastating assault on Glenn and the others. Cantle intervened, deflecting Jesby's attack, and Jesby made her escape. Yotsuya had returned to the surface, rejoining the other heroes. A nagging feeling gnawed at Yotsuya, prompting him to reflect on the series of events they had endured. He pondered how the troll had so easily located them and, suddenly, Jesby reappeared, revealing her true identity as a dragon bishop. She summoned overwhelmingly powerful monsters and trolls using the meteorite's energy. However, these monsters were fixated on the ancient city, which began to tremble. 6 rock golems, positioned around the city, acted as a magical barrier. Yotsuya directed the others to target the golems, but Jesby hindered their efforts by unleashing more monsters. Yotsuya scaled the beanstalk and reached the meteorite, kicking Jesby's staff away. His attack seemed futile until he landed a blow on her, causing a minor wound. Seizing this opportunity, Yotsuya planted a magic seed into the wound, which proved fatal to Jesby. As her life ebbed away, the monsters ceased their onslaught. The heroes had vanquished the golems and dispatched the monsters, saving the city from destruction. Yotsuya awoke to find Lu by his side, and Cantle explained that he had been emitting mana incessantly due to the meteorite's influence. Such an ordeal would be overwhelming for a regular human. Jesby remained alive but imprisoned within the magic beanstalk. Yotsuya attempted to end her life, but Hakazaki intervened, pleading with him to desist. In a final act of malevolence, Jesby confessed that her only love was her god, the great dragon, and then immolated herself with her own magic. Fatina crushed the meteorite into fragments, revealing a cavity within the mountain, unveiling the ancient city. Yotsuya made a request to the city's inhabitants to rename New Eden as Zagroth. The quest had been completed. Glenn earned a question to ask the game master, and she inquired about the dragon entering their world. The game master divulged that a rift connecting both worlds was expanding, foretelling the eventual arrival of the dragon. Yotsuya and the others returned to their world, where Tori greeted him outside his school. Hakazaki, Lu, and Toki discuss the transformation they observed in Yatsuya. The game master materialized beside Yatsuya, revealing that they were compelled to endure the trials of million lives, whether they liked it or not, until its conclusion. That concludes the anime recap. If you enjoyed, make sure you are subscribed, and I'm out.